200,000, 200 and change. Particularly where a ladder truck is 2.3.
Good evening, folks. It's 6:30, and the meeting of the planning board will come to order. Ms. Stockman, could you please call the roll?
David Witham.
Here.
George Gilmet. Jeff Witaszynski. Jeremy Rhodes. John Splain. Mark Richardson.
Here.
William Barden.
Thank you. As we're missing 3 members tonight, Mr. Barden, Mr. Splain, and Mr. Witaszynski, you'll be full voting members for the evening. I'll ask anybody who's speaking to make sure their microphones are turned on, whether that's at the podium or up here on the board. First order of business tonight is approval of the minutes. Those are in your packet. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Whittam, second by Mr. Richardson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Next item, committee reports. Land use boards are in your packets as usual. Mr. Whittam, anything, council?
Nothing of significance, so no report tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Richardson, SRPC?
We have a presentation and meeting.
Sounds good. Thank you. I know Mr. Barry's out. Do we have any items from 2030? All right. Hearing none. Ms. Mears, housing.
We are still looking for a member on the Housing Committee, and John actually has expressed interest, so the Planning Board could appoint a member for that tonight.
We would look for a motion for that. Motion made by Mr. Richardson. Second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Whittam. All those in favor? Any opposed? All right. Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations. All right. Moving on then to old business. Ms. Mears, any old business for the board?
None this evening, Mr. Chairman?
Thank you. Then on to new business. A, Logic Investments LLC seeking a 2-lot subdivision and conditional use permit approval for property located at 94 Blackwater Road in the residential single-family R1 district. Assessors map 35, lot 17, sub number 4-2025. Ms. Mears, any presentation or comment on this?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is proposing a 2-lot subdivision of 1.157 acre lot that has an existing single-family home on it. This lot complies with all the dimensional regulations and complies with our regulations. They are asking for a waiver request for underground utilities and wiring, and they also need a conditional use permit vote. It did go to the Conservation Commission, and the Conservation Commission recommended that the deck shall be as far from the 50-foot buffer as possible, and I think it was to the east. So that was one of the recommendations. And then under the plan revisions on the staff recommendations, I did just speak with the applicant. The utility easement area shall be shown on the plan. The applicant is asking for this condition to be moved to be started for completed prior to the start of site work, just because they don't know the layout of the house at this time. So that will give them some flexibility, and that would be required prior to the start of any kind of site work. All right, this is ready for the board to review.
Thank you. Motion for application acceptance.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
So moved by Mr. Whittam. Second on that. Apologies, I am terrible with names. Second by
Mr. Gilmet.
Mr. Gilmet. Thank you.
Here.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Application is accepted. Look for a regional impact motion on this as well.
Typically, we wait till after presentation on that.
Thank you. Apologies. All right. I'll invite the applicant to present.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kevin McEnany from Civil Consultants this evening, Civil Works, excuse me, representing the applicant Logic Investments. With me here tonight is Brendan Ward of Logic, if you should have any questions of him. This is Assessors Map 35, Lot 17 at 94 Blackwater Road in the R1 district. It's 1.15 acre total with an existing house towards the easterly side of the lot, and the request is for a 2-lot subdivision of the property. We have had the wetlands mapped, and even though there are no wetlands on this particular property, the wetlands on the westerly abutter cause this lot to come under the wetland setback, both the 50-foot and the 100-foot wetland buffer setback. So because of that, we're asking for a conditional use permit as well as the subdivision. As Michelle had said, we had gone to the Conservation Commission on the 14th of January, received an unanimous approval with the condition that we look at moving the deck as far east as we can. And we did that. The deck originally was shown on the westerly edge of the house. We've moved it all the way to the edge of the closest edge of the garage, which is as far as we can move it, which is about 10 to 12 feet. And then we're asking for a waiver for the overhead wires. Underground is required. There's an existing pole that services the existing house. That pole will be relocated once the location of the new house is determined. So that's why Michelle brought that up about requiring that condition to be prior to site plan or site work commencement. So we're on municipal sewer and water, and I think we meet all of the zoning requirements. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. With that, then, we'd look for a regional impact motion.
I'd move that the project does not have any potential for regional impact.
Okay, motion by Mr. Whittam, second by Mr. Richardson. All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, passes unanimously. And this is a public hearing item, so we'll open this for a public hearing. If anybody from the public would like to comment, please come up and state your address and name. All right, hearing no comments, we'll close the public hearing. And Ms. Mears, any correspondence on this item?
None this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, with no comments, we'll open up for questions from the board. Mr. Richardson?
Just for my own clarification, where we see the house located on the drawings we have in front of it, that's not. Just for my own clarification, that on the presentation map that we have where the house is located, that's not necessarily going to be the end result?
That is most likely the location of the house. I can tell you that we don't have an exact dimension on the foundation,
Okay.
so it will not be any further towards the wetlands. If anything, it would be, if it was larger or any different shape, it would be no closer towards the wetlands than the closest point at that.
Okay.
Shown.
And the comment about the deck is that's, even though it might move a little bit, that's still the approximate location as
Yes.
far as the house is concerned?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you. Yep.
Mr. Whittam?
Could you provide a little more clarity? I'm looking for it here. The utility pole that exists and where it's moving to, is it roadside? Is it on the property? I'm not following that.
Can I go to the screen or?
Yep, just
Take
please
the
use the
mic
portable
with you,
microphone. Yep.
Is this on now?
It is.
So this is the pole that is the service pole for the existing house. It comes from a pole on the opposite side of Blackwater Road down to here, but this is the building area for the new house. So most likely it will be relocated to a point out here and then service both the existing house and the new house.
Fair enough. The reason I ask about that, we are in constant discussion, maybe I'll use a heavier word, battle with Eversource with their utility poles. When they typically put a new one, they never take out the old one, and it's terribly problematic. So where this is like on your property,
It will, the old one will come out.
so you say, good luck with that. But it's not going to be in my eyesight, so I don't care, right? So there you go. I do see the relocation of that gravel driveway. Is the intent to remain gravel driveways?
I believe so at this point. It may in the future be paved.
So a concern I have with gravel driveways, that's up to the applicant, how they want to maintain their property. But in Blackwater Road is a prime example. Edge of pavement is almost on the fog line. There is very little shoulder there. So I think a condition of approval that I would be looking for here is a 10-foot paved apron from the road to the driveway to at least reduce the likelihood of roadway degradation from the different surfaces. So other than that, I have no problem with this, but that would be a condition that I'd be looking for here.
other questions or comments from the board? Oh, Mr. Richardson.
That would be for both.
Correct. At time of, before certificate of occupancy on the new house, and at such time that the existing gravel driveway is relocated for the new house.
Right.
So,
Just a couple of comments from myself. Sitting on conservation, when we discussed this, the applicant's doing a good job of relocating driveways and moving driveways, placing driveways in a way that it doesn't have wetland impact or minimizes that. We appreciate your willingness to move the deck on the property to get that further away from the boundary as much as possible. The other thing we noted that I think the board may be interested in is that the placement of the driveway here, we thought could potentially have some positive impacts on flooding or groundwater in the area. So they're improving the site in that regard. Just one question on the request for the waiver from subterranean power. What was your reason for that? Is it that there's an existing pole, and in order to go subterranean, you would have to bury from the other side of Blackwater, or was there another cause?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
All right.
It was already existing.
Sounds good. Wanted to confirm that was it. Beyond that, other questions here?
Mr. Chairman, yeah, so you flagged the utility. I'm fine with the overhead. It's sort of a existing condition. The relocation is a de minimis issue to me. The existing house has water and sewer provided. I am gathering that those lines do not go over the subdivided lot.
They do not.
So we got lucky there. So water is on that side of Blackwater Road, so access should be pretty easy there. Sewer is on the other side.
It was on the other side.
So the applicant is already going to have to pave the disturbed area of Blackwater Road in accordance with the trench permit regulations that the city has. So they're going to have paving crews on site. The added 10-foot driveway
Yeah, that's no
should be
issue.
de minimis.
No
So-
issue.
so.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Any other questions from the board? All right. Ms. Mears, could you run through staff recommendations and conditions?
Yes, plan revisions, note the limit of cutting for the tree line on the site. Conditions that must be met prior to final approval. The final plan shall bear the stamp and signature of a licensed land surveyor and wetland scientist. Monumentation, granite bound shall be installed at the intersections of the lots and streets right-of-way, as well as the property corners which abut the public right-of-way. All other bounds as approved by the board per subdivision regulations section. A surveyor is to submit a signed letter to the planning department stating that the new lot corner monuments have been set prior to the recording of the subdivision. Conditions to be completed prior to the start of site work. The utility easement area shall be shown on the plan. For all projects approved under the conditional use permit, signs shall be placed at the end of the vegetated buffer. Those signs shall be provided by the city at the cost of the applicant. The development will require new addresses. Please submit a request for a new address to the city engineer. If a hearing before the E911 committee is required, this hearing assignment must occur prior to the issuance of building permits. Any building or structure for which a number has been designated shall have such number affixed so that it's plainly visible from the street. It should be a minimum of 3.5 inches and must be reflective. The waiver, if granted, section shall be deleted. The applicant shall apply for a new water and connection permit. The applicant will be required to pay standard water connection fees. Applicant will need to apply for a driveway permit with Department of Public Works in conjunction with the building permit for the new house lot. Residential driveway width can be no wider than 22 feet. There should be a 10-foot wide roadway apron at the driveway prior to certificate of occupancy.
Maybe 10 foot in depth is better stated versus width. So
Okay, in depth. Conditions applicable during and after construction. There should be no wetlands degradation during construction, and a foundation certificate survey shall be submitted to the Department of Development Services Planning Office prior to the issuance of certificate of occupancy.
Thank you, Director Mears. All right, first item is the waiver request for underground wiring. Mr. Whittam?
Yes, I move that the request of Logic Investments LLC for a waiver from Section 710.1 underground wiring be approved with no conditions.
Motion made by Mr. Whittam. Second by Mr. Gomet. All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, waiver is granted. Next item up is the conditional use permit. Mr. Whittam.
Sure. I move that the request of Logic Investments for a conditional use permit to subdivide a lot and construct a new single-family dwelling within the riparian and wetland buffer be approved. Were there any conditions from the Concom
The deck movement.
with making sure they follow any conditions issued by the Conservation Commission?
Motion by Mr. Whittam, second by Mr. Gomet as well. Any discussion there? All right, all those in favor? Any opposed? All right, conditional use permit is granted. Then looking for a subdivision motion.
Might as well make it the trifecta, Mr. Chairman. I move that the request of Logic Investments LLC for a two-lot subdivision for a property located at 94 Blackwater Road in the residential single-family R1 district, Assessors Map 35, Lot 17, sub number 04-2025, be approved with the conditions outlined by the planner this evening, which also includes that 10-foot driveway apron for both driveways.
Motion by Mr. Whittam, second by Mr. Gomet. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor? Any opposed? All right, subdivision granted. Thank you very much.
Easy peasy.
All right, moving on then to item 4B, review of land use fee schedule updates. Ms. Mears.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to provide a little bit of background, the whole entire city is looking at fees right now, and the site and subdivision fees fall underneath the planning board's purview. So the city council is going to be looking to update fees for all the various departments within the city, and as part of this, we're hoping to update planning's fees as well. So we've been reviewing the fees set by the planning board in the site plan review and regulations and the subdivision regulations. We've looked at fees from surrounding communities, including Rochester, Dover, Portsmouth, Concord, Barrington, Rollinsford, Durham, and Milton. We recommend that the planning board consider revising the rules of procedure to include an annual review of fees, which will be similar to how the city council is going to structure reviewing their fee schedule. And so that would be placed in the rules of procedure. We have included some information about the site plan review regulation updates. There's a red line version, and then there's the subdivision regulations. And we also included some information regarding surety schedule and performance guarantees. The planning department has looked at this in conjunction with Public Works and the city engineer to make sure that all projects are consistent with the performance guarantee. So we would be asking the planning board to review those annually as well. So the next step would be to schedule a public hearing for this, hopefully at the next planning board meeting. And if you want, I could go over the fees.
Quick review would probably be good.
Okay. Site plan application fee is $2.50 per thousand. We're recommending that it be $2.75 per thousand. The cost of application is minimum is $100. This would be revised for a minimum of $125. Minor site application, we would just have a flat fee of $100. Currently, it's $2.50 per thousand. Amendment to an approved plan, it is currently $75. We're proposing $100. Conceptual review or design review, we're proposing a $100 fee. Currently, that's $0. Extension of approved site plan, we're proposing $25. Currently, it's $75 for site plan and $50 for subdivision plan. The thought is there's not a lot of staff time that goes into extension request. Minor field modification, go from $0 to $25. Those are if there's any changes to any approved plans, either subdivision or site plans. Minor subdivision application fee, $75 per lot. We're proposing $100 per lot. Major subdivision application fee, $100 per lot. We're proposing $200 per lot. Subdivision plan amendment, $50 is currently. We're proposing $100. Lot line adjustment application is $75 per lot. We're just saying $150 for a flat fee. That's what's being proposed. Conditional use permit would stay the same at $100. Special use permit would be, it's $0 now, it would be $100. A voluntary merger application, $0 is what it is currently. It would be $50. A butters fee is just the current rate. Conservation tags currently are $0. We'd be proposing $5 per sign. Those are the wetlands buffer signs. Condo conversion, 2 units, $0 currently, and we're proposing $25. Condo conversion, 3 or more, is $0 currently. We're proposing $100. Third-party review and inspections, that would be per contract. Special studies requested by the Land Use Board, that'd be per contract. Recording of documents and plans, that's set by the Registry of Deeds, and legal review would be per cost.
Thank you. And the only motion you'd be looking for tonight would be to schedule a hearing for this, or a public hearing?
That is correct.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Do we have any questions from the board? Or a motion?
I have a question.
Mr. Wazinski?
Forgive my ignorance on this, but the conservation tag, $5, when is that used?
That's similar to tonight. If there is any kind of grading within the wetlands buffer, we would ask the applicant to provide those and place those tags so we know as staff when we go out to the site where the buffer is located.
Is that
So,
a permanent tag that stays?
yes.
Okay.
Yep, it's a permanent sign.
Okay.
Other questions? Mr. Whittam and Mr. Richardson?
Yeah, just a general comment. I appreciate the work that staff has done here. As the director indicated, there is a work product currently had first reading last night at City Council to consolidate all the fees that are scattered throughout all of our other ordinances into one fee schedule, and the ordinances would refer to the fee schedule. And the fee schedule would, as was indicated, would be updated on an annual basis on or around budget time. That way, it's just a whole lot cleaner way to identify your fees, easier to update. They're not scattered through all of our ordinances. It's a similar approach here, so I appreciate it. And since we're moving them all and consolidating them, it is a time to update them and make them current. So appreciate the effort.
Sounds good. And then Mr. Richardson?
Yeah, is it appropriate to talk about the project's surety schedule here?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, I didn't know if we wanted to wait till the public hearing or not, but how often are these updated? I mean, it's 2023, but I would imagine these fees, these projected costs have risen considerably since then.
We try and do it annually. Obviously, this one was last updated in 2023, so Amber does look, the city engineer, she does look at this annually. We just might not have put that on there.
Okay,
But yeah, it's something that needs to be done annually.
yeah, I was gonna say, it just seems a little bit outdated, and so, thank you.
Yeah, I can have Amber look at this
It might be
too,
helpful and then have a more current rev date.
prior to the public hearing.
Any other questions or comments from the board? All right, then looking for a motion.
I'd move that we send the fee update schedule to public hearing at our next regularly scheduled meeting.
Motion by Mr. Whittam, second by Mr. Wilmot. Any comments on motion? All right, all those in favor? Any opposed? All right. Yep, this is approved for public hearing. Thank you very much. All right, Ms. Mears, any other new business before the board tonight?
None this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. We do have some workshop business. There's been a brief recess requested to allow for setup time for the SRPC folks, so let's close the meeting for a 10-minute recess. We'll resume at 7:04. Thank you very much. Looks like we were ready to go a minute early, so let's reopen and move on to workshop business. So we have the Master Plan, Transportation, and Economic Development chapters. We've got folks from SRPC with us tonight. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us. So good evening, everyone. My name is Mike Polizzotti. I'm the Senior Economic Development Planner at Stratford Regional Planning Commission. I'm joined by my colleague Colin Lentz, Principal Transportation Planner, and we are the lead authors working with the city on the development of the city's inaugural Economic Development chapter and an update to the Transportation chapter of the Master Plan. So this workshop is going to follow a somewhat similar flow to the Vision and Historic and Cultural Resources workshop that was held a few weeks ago. And really what we're hoping to get out of tonight is discuss the drafted themes and goals that were shared with you all in your meeting packet, and get a little bit of feedback from you all on these themes and goals, and then do a little bit of an exercise here to discuss some of the different ways that these goals could be ranked in terms of their feasibility and impact, and also provide an opportunity for you all to provide feedback on the goals and potentially edit them, provide new insights that could become new goals, different things like that. I will just say for the development of these themes and goals, both in relation to transportation and economic development, they were all built upon the engagement that was done over the last several months through this community-wide survey, through the workshop, and through some analyses of existing conditions, data from the local, state, national level, et cetera. So really, we are confident that the drafted themes for economic development and transportation are really reflective of the community's preferences for the future in these different areas and where they see kind of the greatest needs and where the greatest opportunity areas are for investment and different things like that. So within these thematic areas are the drafted goals. So we're ideally going to start with economic development, walk through the 4 drafted goal themes, talk about the goals, and then for each of the goals underneath, run through that exercise that is feasibility and impact. And then that'll be the opportunity to provide feedback on each specific goal and potentially add new goals to this list too. So in terms of economic development, just to start there, myself and my colleagues who are working on this chapter, as we were parsing through the engagement findings and the data, kind of 4 distinct areas rose to the top for what could be the themes for the economic development chapter. One of them was very much so centered on investments in the downtown area, so High Street, Main Street, the buildings throughout that area that could use more investment and redevelopment and revitalization. The second theme was focused more on the workforce in Somersworth, ensuring that there is a match between the skills that younger individuals, students are gaining and the needs of businesses in the area, and then also supporting local businesses in Somersworth as well. The third thematic area was focused on ensuring that existing growth that Somersworth experiences in their commercial sectors outside of downtown is sustained and continues. So areas like 108, Route 9, where more of the big box commercial retail is, those are areas that were highlighted as assets in the community that continued investment and promoting growth should continue. And then the fourth thematic area for economic development that was identified had to do with leveraging Somersworth's location within the Tri-Cities, neighbors like Dover and Rochester, and then across the border in Berwick, Maine, thinking about different ways to partner with those communities, especially Berwick being so close in proximity, the 2 downtowns, for economic development and growth within their downtowns. And a component of this 4th theme also had to do with the identity of Somersworth, both in terms of how people view the city who live here and how people from outside the city view the city as well. There was a lot of conversation, both in the positive and negative, about the different opportunities that Somersworth has and the challenges that face it. So being able to leverage more of the opportunities that the city has and try to figure out its economic identity within the broader region is a component of this theme as well. So before, I guess, continuing into some of the goals, I would ask if there is any feedback on these draft themes from members of the board or thoughts. And then once we discuss any feedback, or if there is none, I'd like us to walk through some of these proposed goals and map them out on this feasibility impact matrix.
Yeah, I really appreciate all the time and effort and putting all this together and the people that responded. And to me, I think the biggest thing is going to be parking downtown. Having that available readily for anybody. I mean, it's not just, we're building all these housing opportunities downtown, but I look at it in a bigger scale. It's not just downtown residents, it's people coming into town. And I noticed the comment in here about, grab and go kind of stores. Well, you still need a place to park. And, I think that's going to be the biggest challenge in downtown is parking.
If I could just kind of jump on those coattails, Mark, if I could. City is currently working with SRPC on a downtown parking study and kind of looking at that thematically. And I think maybe there's a conversation around parking in general, but I think it's better defined as leveraging the parking we have and a smarter utilization of the parking. I would argue that we have an abundance of parking. It's just not in the right place. So how do we leverage that in a better and more meaningful way? Whether that's different time designations, better enforcement, other creative uses, I don't know. So hence why we're leaning on you folks to help us with that. But we have a lot of parking. It's just not in the right place. So how do we make that work? Can we make that work? I'm going to try to be an optimist here and say that we can. So I think there's that. I think the other thing that I would point out, I think there is a desire to continue to invest in our downtown. City Council recently authorized use of state revolving loan funds to upgrade the water line on Main Street from Indigo Hill Road all the way to John Parsons Drive here. That's a multi-million-dollar project. It's step one in what I'll call a complete streets approach, but we're taking it in chunks and we're taking it sort of by utility versus by going the long way. Once we're done with this, we'll probably approach drainage and maybe sewer and kind of work our way from the bottom up, trying to leverage state monies and other grant opportunities. So it's just too big of a pill to bite up all at once. It's probably a $30 million project by the time all is said and done. So it's these incremental steps. But I think with every step, that's progress, right? So, and I think that's important to celebrate in some way.
Yeah, I agree with particularly with the comment about we have a great deal of parking, just not in exactly the right places, because we have a good amount in Tri-City Plaza and along Main Street. If you look at where the downtown corridor areas are doing well, it's not those spots. The areas on High Street are doing quite well. The parking isn't quite there for all of the high use in that area. My hope is that as the large residential projects in the areas of Main Street with the old bleachery, with Elm Street, as those come up, that forms a nexus of population that attracts some of these smaller businesses. But right now, it's difficult to get people to those spots that they need.
The parking issues tonight, because I stopped to have lunch at the Villa, but trying to find a place to park downtown, you ride around 3 or 4 times before you get there, so they're definitely, reallocating some of these parking spaces.
And I don't want to steal any of Colin's thunder, but I think there is going to be some parking components within transportation, right, Colin?
Yes, and I can share some of the preliminary findings from the study we did. We're still working on the goals and such, but I can share some of these things that corroborate the comments from the board so far.
I think just in general, the themes that you've laid out, you cannot argue those. They seem sound, and they're well-founded in the data that you collected. And again, just anecdotally, that's what I see too, right? So I can align with these. I'm not sure if one is more important than the other. I think they're all important, right? They all support one another. Theme for the regional economic partnerships. And again, you outline, Berwick, Maine, and I think that's our golden opportunity here. I don't want to dismiss Dover or Rochester, but I think our real golden opportunity is working with Berwick, just because all that separates us there is a bridge, right? So there's connectivity there. So I applaud that.
And unless there's other comments, that's probably a good place to segue into themes.
Great. Thank you all. So underneath each theme, several goals between, I believe, 3 and 4 for the economic development chapter were drafted. And these goals are not specific action items. Those come later. But in terms of trying to match what the future could look like underneath each of these themes is what's laid out here. So for the first theme, which is very much so focused on the downtown area of Somersworth, so Main Street, High Street, and this kind of core that people gravitate to, 3 draft goals were shared with you all in your packet. The first one being strengthening downtown Somersworth as a vibrant center for local businesses, arts, dining, and everyday services. The second one being supporting the revitalization and adaptive reuse of underutilized and vacant properties in the downtown and riverfront areas. And the third one being attracting destination businesses, cultural spaces, and activities that create a downtown that's a place to gather and spend time. So very much focused on some of the placemaking aspects of Somersworth's downtown. This is an opportunity, I think, to hear from you all about how these goals feel for you all based on this theme, if there are other potential draft goals that you would like to see underneath this theme, and then hearing from you a little bit about how you envision the feasibility and impact of these draft goals. So if something is high feasibility, that's likely to be easily implemented on limited dollars and have larger public buy-in versus something that's low feasibility and impact measurements as well.
All right, go ahead.
I need that on. Maybe a general question. When we're looking at downtown, the goals, do we have a good model of some success that this is from another area? I'm thinking right now, Newmarket, where Newmarket went from, they made quite a change in their downtown area, and I'm sure there are others. In every city's going to have its own identity and its own path forward, but do we use those successful models in developing this?
To some extent, yes. I think I have a 2-part answer to your question. Typically, when working on a master plan chapter, one thing to do is to look back at past themes and goals to measure success and to see what's working and not what's working in the specific community. Somersworth does not have an economic development chapter, so we're starting from scratch. There were some components of a downtown charrette or plan. I'm not sure what the actual title of the document was back probably 15 or 20 years ago at this point. Some of those things fed into this as well. In terms of what the vision was back then and what some of the actions were back then to try and implement. But from our work at SRPC and the assistance that we provide other communities, there is quite a bit that does get drawn from what we see as successes. Newmarket made some significant investments into their physical infrastructure in downtown in terms of sidewalks and lighting. I believe they used a TIF district to finance some of those. And a lot of that success shows in terms of some of the vibrancy that they see down there with people patronizing businesses and walking around. So there are components of that within this as well.
So what came first, the infrastructure changes or the investment?
I think that's the classic chicken and the egg.
Sure.
But from my understanding, in Newmarket, a lot of their investment was in some of their physical infrastructure within downtown in terms of their sidewalks, lighting, water, sewer, different components like that. Newmarket, I believe, is an interesting example too because of some of the concurrent development and investment in the housing space that was happening. Their mill redevelopment as well in the past really did supercharge some of the investment in downtown. And Somersworth is seeing some of the investment in the housing space right now too, with some of the new developments and the larger apartment complexes that are coming in, and the opportunity that exists at some of the older industrial sites for potential redevelopment in the future.
I guess my night to piggyback, I'll piggyback on that as well. So, which came first, who knows, right? But I think anecdotally I can say when we did our downtown infrastructure work now about 10, 15 years ago, somewhere in that vicinity, that was a, I don't know, 10, 12, $13 million project where we rebuilt all of Market Street, High Street, a portion of Main. We replaced the bridge going over into Berwick, new sidewalks, upgraded lighting, and all of that. And we definitely have seen the vacant storefronts in that corridor fill as a result of it, and improve quality of existing businesses through that corridor. So I think there's a direct connection between those investments and economic development, which I think is the hope of the council as we invest in Main Street, although it's going to take us longer because it's just a bigger street and a whole lot more money. But I think that is the hope there. I want to go to 1B here and talk about underutilized and vacant properties. Just yesterday evening, the council authorized the city manager to take acceptance of a grant, or to apply for a grant for
It was award acceptance, yeah.
award acceptance, infill development in our historic district, right, to relook at those standards, because a lot of our downtown, not all of it, but a lot of it is in the historic district, and infill development is sometimes tricky as a result of that. So the grant should help us to better align sort of the various boards so that the infill development is arguably easier. So I think that's a good thing.
Thinking about those corridors and the large vacant buildings that are in that area, feels like the last piece in that puzzle is really the Eclaira building. And I know that came up in a lot of the responses that you saw. I think it's kind of on the forefront of what people think of when they think of that Main Street corridor. Chinburg has done a lot of work in those old mill buildings and continues to. The Bleachery is their next big project. It feels like if there can be some progress on the Eclaira site, then that would kind of fill in that whole space. And I say that not because I don't think it's happening. I think anybody who's been around City Hall has seen continuing effort around that space, but it's been a difficult nut to crack. So hopefully that fills in and we can see that whole area pop back up. Mr. Swain.
Well, I have some suggestions for the economic downtown. So, for example, since we have the river right next door, there's no evidence. You know, when you drive around the town, you don't even know that it exists there. What kind of steps have you taken in the plan to, how to say, like, bring the river into the town? You know what I mean? For example, more, how to say, path walks along the river, some kind of park, you know what I mean, to make it more viable, you know. So you are aware that the river is there, you know, they can brought up into the, you know, downtown area. Another suggestion, for example, will be European style of plaza. If you've been to like Europe, small towns, every town has a small plaza. For example, I don't know if feasible, but it's an idea. For example, you know where the Somersworth Plaza is or the shopping center. Instead of a whole parking lot. You can have some kind of a city square and like business all around it. That can be a solution to bring more businesses, some kind of hotspot. Because right now the town doesn't really have a center, so to have some sort of that in the long-term solution will be interesting, I would say, but some suggestions.
Thank you. Yeah, I think items like that, so the riverfront was something that came up quite a bit, and I think it's reflected in Goal B. But some specific actions related to the riverfront in terms of a river walk or different changes there are definitely considerations when we get to the action
Yes,
items.
because your solution said like to strengthen downtown as a vibrant center. Since a lot of businesses right now at the market space, they are along the river, to have some sort of solution that some path on the other side of the businesses along the river, where the rail tracks are, some sort to bring that space to life, like resting space along the river,
Great.
I think an exciting thing that the mayor has recently formed a Riverwalk study committee. It's chaired,
Excellent.
chaired by Kimberly Showen, who is a member of our zoning board of adjustment, I believe, or historic district.
Yeah.
So, and it's to take off from what already exists. So we do have a small river walk down off of Buffinsville Road. That'll be continued with the Chinburg property redevelopment at 200 Main Street. So it's marching north. But the area that was outlined, close by to here, there's a lot of impediments, but I think the goal of this committee is to look at that. I love the idea of trying to identify some sort of town center where you could have different activities. The plaza has been flagged many times as that potential spot. In fact, it happens every now and again. Like we have a pumpkin festival, the children's festival. So on occasion, a couple, 2-3 times a year, it's a pop-up town center, right? But it doesn't stay. It's there for about a day, right? So I think having something that's more sustainable is a great idea.
For example, like Portsmouth has the Prescott Park, where a lot of activities take place there. So to have something like similar will be a great solution long term.
Mr. Richardson, then Mr. Barton.
Go ahead.
He called you
All right.
first.
I'm glad, thank you very much for talking about utilizing the downtown space with the park. I've been talking about that for a long time. I know I'm in a minority when I say I'd just as soon see a Clara get knocked down and turn that whole area into a park where people can gather, and it would be a permanent space to have events. But I'm probably certain that a Clara is not going to get knocked down and removed. It's the ugliest building we have in town, and I just want it to go away. But it is the aesthetic. The river is what we don't see, and you're absolutely right about that. People have gone downtown and, oh, there's a river there? Yes. You have to go beyond the mill buildings, and there's a river, it goes under the bridge into Berwick and that kind of thing. And it goes north for quite a ways. But I'm always surprised at how far that Salmon Falls River goes north. But I think there's something to be said about the aesthetics of downtown and open space, and we don't have that. And that's really the last place that I can think of downtown is to have open space. So,
We have empty space. It's just not open.
thank you.
Yes, empty space, including at the abandoned BB gas station. I'm surprised how long it's taken to find a replacement for that station. I think it would be a prime spot for a gas station so close to the Berwick border with the sales tax differential.
That's correct. Gas station is not allowed in downtown. It was
So it would require a variance.
That explains a lot.
So I would ask the board, based on our discussion, so thank you all. There's a lot of ideas that slot within each of these draft goals in terms of the placemaking piece or identifying areas for public gathering and businesses. When looking at these 3 draft goals, do they feel as though they are items of high impact, low impact, high feasibility, low feasibility, based on some of the discussion we had and what's here in the text?
I apologize for the term. What do we mean by feasibility and impact?
Sure. So feasibility is how easy it would be to happen.
And how expensive it would be?
Yeah, so that's a component of how
Okay.
easy it would be. Public buy-in could be another.
Yeah.
So ranking it from high to low, and then the impact piece is.
Is
how-
it worth it?
Oh, yeah, yeah,
How much impact?
yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to follow up, what is that lot with the abandoned BP station zoned for now?
It's in the form-based code area, 3, I believe, and there's a number of uses such as dining, retail use, professional office services. We've actually had a lot of people inquire about that lot for those different uses, but currently BP wants to hold on to that site.
That raises a great question. You could use the BP as an example, but I think we have a number of properties in our downtown core that ideally so much more could be done with them, but the current owners are reluctant to sell. They are reluctant to improve, so they sit in this sort of stagnant state. So we're sort of hamstrung by that problem. BP is not the only one. I mean, it's a front and center one for sure, but you can look out the window over here. There's a big block of buildings that are vacant and in poor shape, but the property owner doesn't want to do anything with it. So it creates a problem.
I'd be curious if council could potentially be creative about providing a spur to owners of vacant properties to do something with them, rather than just let them sit and continue to generate a small amount of tax revenue.
Reassess them.
Whether that's surcharging for derelict properties, reassessing for true market value. I think you raised a significant problem that we're facing is properties that are sitting either vacant or decaying that are not being improved because of stubborn owners. So anything that council could do to light a fire under these people would definitely be.
Don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but I would venture to say that some of them have been flagged as property maintenance issues and are probably in a protracted multi-year court conversation.
Deep pockets.
They're like a cockaburr in a wool sweater. They can't go away.
As painful as you could make that burr for those folks, that would be, I think, appreciated by a lot of members of the community.
Back to, feasibility, doability. Some of these terms are rather, I'll use the word nebulous, and I get that they're that way because they're goals, right? They're not specific, but strengthen. All right, strengthen downtown Somersworth, right? Well, I think we're doing some things to do that, right? Is it as much as we could do or not do? I think the goal is fine. And the details are where you could argue over how strong are our efforts, right? Can we make some of these properties owners be a little more palatable to sell their properties or do something with them, right? Who knows? Attract destination businesses, cultural spaces. I think we try to do that. I think there are some opportunities. My fellow board members have said, I think the town center helps with that. If we could find a place and identify that, that's a great idea. So I think the goals are broad enough that they work. I think they're all feasible to an extent. And I think community members would agree with these. I can't see anybody, they might agree that some are more challenging than others, but I think they would agree that they're good goals.
I think that's,
Plaza, I'm sorry.
oh no, please go ahead.
The plaza is owned by the city, right? The property, it's.
Yes and no. So the city owns the parking lot, and again, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole because we don't have enough time tonight to explain it, but we own the facade, but we don't own the rest of the buildings.
So parking lot and the facade.
Correct.
I mean, so there's possibility there for having something implemented in the long term to have something like parking lot, like what do you call it, underground, and then a plaza on top, or.
So, and again, just in fairness to some of our newer members here, there was an effort, I don't know, 10 years ago to put a building in the parking lot, create a town center in the parking lot, and there was a fair amount of public outrage to do that. So, not to say it can't be done, but it's not an easy one.
The dearth of traffic is a very sticky problem on Main Street. It's easy to say this lot should be this, it could be so much better, but if it's not readily accessible, yes, by car as well as by foot, that's the first obstacle you have to address, in my opinion.
I think you guys have brought up some really good talking points here, and I'm wondering, have we, and again, I apologize for being the new guy here, have we identified all the barriers to what Somersworth should look like? Because we're talking about goals, but here's some things that we talked about and said, boy, those are some interesting barriers. Have we listed them? Have we identified them, put them?
Good 3D visualization to see how it will look, and there will be more willing these days. I have a question, but maybe we will touch base on the transportation. Does the plan give solutions, for example, if any, like a bypass or other solutions to connect it to the city north, beside the marketplace and the bridge, like any other bridge, for example, in the long term? Because you want to avoid traffic from the downtown, but you have to have a solution, like a different bridge, so people get out of the main market square to connect it to the other side of the river.
You're talking about additional connections to Berwick,
Yes.
to the main side?
Yes, just because it's only one bridge, right, that connects to the other side.
From the downtown directly, yes. And the congestion through downtown was definitely something we heard a lot about in the outreach, and that's an obvious barrier if you talk about a barrier. So I mean, if you're talking about a new bridge, I don't see that happening anytime, anywhere soon. Just with the cost of those sorts of things right now, if you're talking about new infrastructure, that's a tall order on something of that scale. If I understood the question
Yeah.
correctly. I can speak to more of that when it's
Yeah,
my turn.
okay.
Are there any other comments on the goals underneath theme 1? If not, we can move on to theme 2.
We've successfully beat up theme 1.
Perfect.
So, yep.
With no changes.
So the second theme, like I had mentioned, is related to supporting local businesses in town and growing the workforce in Somersworth. A component of our outreach involved a business survey to registered businesses in Somersworth and follow-up conversations with business owners who were interested in talking more. And that's where a bit of the information that supported this theme came from. Most of the businesses that we talked to were small businesses, either sole proprietorships or they had storefronts in downtown. So underneath this theme, the 3 draft goals that were generated were retaining and strengthening existing local businesses through coordinated strategies and support and technical assistance, reducing barriers to provide support for navigating the process of starting a business in Somersworth, and then promoting workforce attraction and retention by ensuring that any investments towards economic development align with the different needs and priorities surrounding transportation, housing, education in the city, etc.
Yeah, looking at this one, to me, it really boils down to two things, and one is regulatory barriers, the other is housing. On the regulatory barrier front, a lot of this has been brought up several times in the past at meetings like this, and I know city staff has been working extremely hard at chopping through that Gordian knot of zoning laws that we have in the city. I know Senator Mears has talked about this quite a bit and has made a lot of progress on cleaning that up, but there's work left to be done there that I know is ongoing. When it comes down to housing, that's a very difficult thing and something that is very hard for the city to do a lot on. One thing that was very encouraging to me was at a conceptual review, I believe 2, maybe 3 months ago, the development that's talking about going in at the soon to be vacated church on Main Street, or not Main Street, but High Street rather, including workforce housing. And that's a piece that I think the city could potentially encourage with developers. It's a difficult thing to do because developers are going to act in a capitalist way and try to squeeze as much out of their land as they can. But workforce housing is pretty much necessary for small businesses to thrive. People need to live near where they work, and if they can't afford to live near where they work, it's very difficult for a small business to pay a wage that attracts people. So I look at this, and those are the two things that it boils down to for me, at least.
I, for one, am very excited about the amount of housing units that are being built within a stone's throw of our downtown. I know that is not embraced by the community as a whole, but I, for one, think it will generate foot traffic in the downtown. That will support businesses, support the local businesses. It is going to happen as a result of hundreds of people now moving into, in essence, the downtown. So it will come with its challenges, parking, calls for service for public safety and all of that. But I tend to put this on a scale, and I think the benefits far outweigh the negatives. We've reduced a fair amount of urban blight, all of those things, and I can't help but to believe that these developments will trigger further development and further improvements. It's sort of like dominoes that start falling. So I am extremely optimistic about that. So I think to the degree about these goals, retain and strengthen existing businesses, I think the actions that the city has taken, maybe some good fortune with developers looking our way, is helping with that. I agree with Jeremy that more workforce housing would be great. I don't know how we get there, though. That's a challenge. Because it is just economics at the end of the day with these large-scale developments. And I'd also agree with you, Jeremy, that the city staff, both past and present, continue to work to make our processes a bit more streamlined. We've heard from more than one developer in here with project approvals that our processes here in Somersworth are a whole lot more straightforward and faster than most any other place. Most site plans and projects that come before this planning board get approved in a meeting, at most 2. I'm hard pressed to think of a project that went longer than 2 meetings, so 2 months. That's pretty quick in development terms. So I agree, reducing barriers makes sense, but to some extent, it's less of an issue here than it is in other places. So.
Yeah, and for people that are opposed to the development of large-scale residential, the way that a downtown grows is not just population, but population density. And if you want a thriving downtown, if you want Main Street to come back, if you want a walkable downtown, you need people within walking distance. These large-scale developments are how that happens. It may change the complexion of the town, it certainly will, but if you want a vibrant town, you need people to have a vibrant city.
I would definitely agree with developers that have come in here who have been very cooperative, have ideas of making improvements. They're searching out those parking areas to make sure that they have ample parking for their residents. The one that was before the SRTC, about the lot on 87, on Elm Street, whatever the address was there, that we're probably gonna hear in the near future. You know, that's an example of looking for spaces for parking for their residents. When they come here, the Fayette Street development that's going to be beginning, somebody suggested that Fayette Street could be one way, and that just took off. And the residents here from Fayette Street were like, yes, we would love that. And not only that, it would if we could do angle parking, that would allow for even more parking on the street. So they come here, they're excited about their projects, they believe in them. I think, you know, we have some skepticism when we have any developer for a major project, but their presentations have been very good, and I think we've been cooperating with them, as Dave said, and come up with ideas to solve problems. So I would agree with that we're not the most difficult of all people to work with. We can, you know, I think somebody comes in here with a good idea, we're open.
Now, I'm new to the planning board, but for economic development and helping these small businesses or any businesses in town, I know years past, there used to be funding available for small business loans to help. Is that something that still happens?
Yeah, so there are loans available to small businesses through the Small Business Administration, through the local Economic Development Corporation, in our region, Stratford Economic Development Corporation, and they provide financing for.
So if somebody wanted to, like, revitalize some of these buildings that are falling apart,
yeah, there are different conditions for different loans. I'm not sure which ones would allow for like capital improvements within a building, but a lot of their different loan kind of products are for business support, business expansion, components like that.
Again, you talk about supporting these efforts. You know, the city has adopted the provisions of RSA 79E, it's our Chapter 41, I believe, of our ordinances that allows elements of tax relief for certain properties for certain numbers of years. And a recent example of that is Nostos MMA is going into the old AMP. They're currently located on Market Street. It is a very successful and thriving business that has a lot of people show up. And guess what? They all park on Market Street when they go there. So by incentivizing their move to the plaza and the use of the plaza lot, undoubtedly that's going to free up some parking spots at peak times on Market Street. So I think the city, and again, does everybody embrace that tax relief? No, I think part of it is a lack of understanding of how it works. We need to do a better job maybe of sharing how that works, because the community, some people cheer it on and some people would rather tar and feather the city council for granting the relief, right? So it's just an interesting conversation.
Other comments on this theme?
Great. Thank you all for that. So the third theme focused on continued growth and commercial and industrial growth beyond the downtown, so focusing on the corridors throughout the city that have existing some of that big box and different types of businesses, and ensuring that there's continued support for the expansion and development of these types of businesses within the city. So underneath this theme were 4 draft goals: encourage redevelopment and investments along key corridors like New Hampshire 108 and New Hampshire 9, Somersworth Industrial Park. Identify underutilized parcels along key corridors for mixed-use development potential. A component of this is some of the Route 108 work that SRPC is supporting the city on as well. The third goal underneath this theme was ensuring that any efforts to attract and retain businesses along these commercial corridors are prioritized alongside investments within the downtown, and collaboration between city departments, local organizations, and the public to identify different ways to create multimodal connections to these economic nodes outside of downtown. So ensuring that there's connectivity in a variety of different ways to access these different economic areas of the city.
Yeah, looking at these ones, these goals kind of strike me as a combination of less that needs to be done and also less that the city can do. There's a lot of development activity going on 108. If you look at High Street, there are a couple of underutilized properties there, but significantly less than we see around Main Street. Those tend to sprout on their own. And if you look at 108 and the concerns there, I think it's more around when is the city going to, or not the city, but the state actually going to finish that 108 work, which continues to shove out further and further into the future. These seem like a combination of less that the city can do and less that the city can do given the state involvement.
I mean, another thing that can do is to relax zoning laws, you know, give more flexibility to people or investors, you know.
That, I think, came up a lot when we were talking about housing and allowing multifamily residential inside CI district.
Like the house that I bought is a duplex, but it's a neighborhood with single family, but the laws are more relaxed there. They changed it, so you can do like duplexes. So they build the house. Something that
I wouldn't get rid of the theme, and I would not necessarily get rid of any of the goals here, but I tend to agree with you, Jeremy, that these areas, tend to take care of themselves, right? Most of the projects that we see are in these corridors, right? So it's just economically driven. There's traffic volume that drives it. Route 108 is a state-maintained roadway, so there's very little we could do with regard to the roadway. I think we champion the upgrade that has been proposed out there because I think that will help us with sort of the multimodal. You know, right now, Route 108 is good for cars. It's not good for much of anything else, right? Despite the best efforts of people to try to walk or bike out there on occasion, which is scary, but I don't know if there's a way to weave in here to sort of, I don't know what the word is, champion the upgrade of Route 108. I think we're doing that, but I don't want to lose sight of that, right? I think we need to continue to pound that drum, despite the fact that I don't think anybody hears us over in Concord, but let's buy a bigger drum, right?
Yep.
So.
Other comments on 3?
I think they hear us. We've certainly had the opportunity, you know, with the Gassett hearings and things like that. It's money. Money just isn't there. And Colin, I'm sure, can explain that a lot better than I can. So, but I think they do hear us.
Other comments on theme 3?
Great. And then the final theme is related to the regional economic development partnerships and community identity. One thing we realized while developing these themes for economic development and working with the broader project team is the vision chapter and the conversations about identity there for the community, and if there's interest in the board in keeping that conversation in the economic development chapter as well. Several of the questions that we asked in the community survey and the conversations that came up at the community workshop were related to Somersworth's economic identity. So just given that surge of comments, we decided to keep it in here for your consideration. So the 3 goals within theme 4 have to do with local connections and organizations for collaboration on economic development initiatives within the city, strengthening the connections to neighboring communities, particularly Berwick, Maine, across the river, and then working to improve the image of Somersworth and its reputation that community members have for the city and its reputation throughout the broader region as well, too. That was something that came up quite a bit from members of the public within the survey.
I'm looking at 4B, strengthen connections. This might be the first time I'm going to suggest an edit. I think we have good connections with our neighboring communities. We get along, we talk with them. I think what might be better suited here, and I'm wordsmithing on the fly, but something like identifying shared opportunities and goals or something like that. So it's less nebulous. It's like, all right, let's find out what the opportunities are that we share and what can we do, right? So versus sort of, hey, go shake hands with them and get along. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be so, but you get the point, I think. A bit more concrete there.
And one other piece that I'd call out here is 4C about improving the image of Somersworth. I think that's come an awfully long way. When my wife and I moved into Somersworth close to 20 years ago, our main criteria was where can we afford a Victorian? And that basically meant Somersworth or Rochester, and we chose Somersworth. This town, the city has improved dramatically in that close to 2 decades. High Street has flourished in the downtown area. 108's developed dramatically. The non-downtown area of High Street has seen growth consistent there, and it's shown in property values. It's shown in the new developments that have come in. So I think it's more a case of people recognizing what this city is now, rather than sticking with outdated stereotypes from the past. It's come an awfully long way. It's a very surprisingly nice city given what people have said about it in the past.
I do think, I agree with you 100% there, Jeremy, but I do think we still have challenges in this area. And it's less of the community as a whole, but our educational system gets wrongfully attacked for being subpar. It's not, right? So we have to work at that, right? And don't ask me now how we do that, but it's something I think we need to chip away at, because if we want to attract families, we got to have a school system that people believe in, right? I believe in it. I think many people up here believe in it, but that is not shared universally.
Yeah, agreed. Other comments on theme 4?
I just think that the Regional Planning Commission is a very interesting little microcosm of communities that when we're there and we're talking, it's interesting to sit and listen and figure out people there are working together to make the region better. And there's a lot of commonality. There are things that we have differences in, but there's a lot of commonality. When we go to pick the projects, I think, you know, what's going to go on the 10-year list and that kind of thing. People look out for each other. You know, I have to say that, you know, there are times when I say, gee, there's all this money going to Dover, Somersworth, Rochester, and what about all these small towns that need work too? And they're not, and you know what? Small towns get their projects too. And it's something that it gives you hope that there is a good future. And I hope that carries through to our administrative leaders and in all our surrounding communities, that they can work together for everyone's benefit. And just because something is in your town doesn't mean that it can't benefit our town, or in our city that can benefit somebody else's. And that's a spirit that really needs to be amplified, I think. You know, and you know, you listen to those conversations in the Regional Planning Commission meetings, and it does give you hope that there is a future that can happen.
Growth, improvement, and positive changes don't necessarily respect lines on paper.
Yes.
So. Any other comments on theme 4?
Great. Well, thank you all for the comments on the themes and goals for economic development. a lot here for us to parse through and incorporate for next time. So thank you all again. Appreciate it.
Hello, everyone. My name's Colin. I'm the transportation planner. I'll kind of follow Mike's model, and if any thoughts about feasibility or impact come up directly on the goals, just let me know, but I'll kind of work through thinking about that in the background. So, to go over the themes that we heard from outreach, you've already spoken to a lot of some of those desires for walkability within the downtown, but connecting to destinations outside it, along some of those main corridors. Safety is always a hot topic, and people have very specific geographical locations on their, their commutes or their trips to daycare or the store that they note that have safety hazards. Support for public transit, again, in that connection sort of theme. Folks noted some places that are inaccessible. A lot of support for the idea of complete streets, especially Main Street, and a lot of people talked about the plaza, as you've already pointed out. The congestion into Berwick, especially that afternoon, evening commute. People noted that. There were 3 distinct sort of corridors or gateways or parts of town that people pointed out in the outreach, the downtown, 108, and High Street. What you all have mentioned but didn't pop up as much, I was a little surprised, is that connection to Berwick, and that I would suggest is, as you pointed out, is the kind of the biggest opportunity for partnership and growth for both communities. A lot of calls for some theoretically lower cost improvements. If you talk about beautification, it's bushes, lighting, and sprucing up murals and things like that. Sort of those things inching towards a bigger streetscape improvement, like a complete streets on Main Street. And of course, parking came up. So to go through the themes one by one, kind of walkable, bikeable Somersworth, speaking to some of the things you've talked about, that community character, and can a resident walk from their front door to a downtown business or a park or school, or a destination outside the downtown, but that creating community through the transportation network. I already kind of talked about transportation connections, so improving multimodal accessibility along main corridors and then over to Berwick. Downtown Somersworth as its kind of core identity. Kind of enough said there. You've already spoken to some of the plaza came up there as a place for. I saw a lot of talk of taking the model of High Street and then using that as expanding that into places like the plaza, High Street, and just sort of building on that success. And then safety I called out as its own thing, just because people have strong opinions on that, and that is if your transportation network isn't safe, that's kind of a baseline that's missed. So that's something we can come back to if I have an area of expertise. Safety is one of those. So any immediate questions or comments or edits on the themes themselves before we go into the goals?
I guess generally, I like the idea of a complete streets policy. I think the city council has adopted a complete streets approach, which doesn't mean a whole lot, right? It's not written down, but we've embraced this model, right? It's up here, right? So maybe a policy is taking that approach and sort of memorializing it, which with an elected body probably is important because there could be change and turnover, and it would help to carry that forward. So I sort of like that idea. And to the extent that you talked about carrying what we've done on High Street to other places, we recently undertook last year and partly the year before, complete streets approach on Constitutional Way. That road was completely rebuilt. And if you drive down there, the lighting fixtures are what we did down here, the trash cans. And the goal is Main Street in time is the same thing, right? And I could envision the plaza, right? So I think this complete streets approach and what you've identified, let's carry on with what we've done, is an approach that we have up here, but maybe we need to memorialize that. So I don't disagree with that. And along the way, when we've done these complete streets, we've had conversations around bike lanes, no bike lanes, width of lanes, traffic calming for safety, parking. So a lot of these pieces get pulled into those conversations through the engineering. So just, I think we're doing pretty good, but could do better, obviously.
I apologize. So what is complete streets?
Good question. It is, by today's standards, a fairly, it's well established, I'll say, instead of saying it's an old term for a street that doesn't just serve one mode, cars and trucks. You're thinking about pedestrians, cyclists, utilities, public transit. Do you have a really nice main street in your commercial corridor, but it doesn't allow for delivery trucks to successfully drop off, goods at local businesses? So it's incorporating the broadest range possible of types of uses for that right-of-way.
And I'll just use Constitutional Way as an example. So a brand-new water line,
Yep.
Sewer line, and drainage was completely new and rerouted, and actually did some pretty innovative, like tree box filters and things of that nature to help with stormwater management. New overhead utilities, so Eversource did replace the lines on the street. A wider sidewalk, making sure it could accommodate things like sidewalk tractors that need to plow it in the wintertime. Better designated parking, better pedestrian crossings, pedestrian amenities like benches and things of that nature. It's not a street used a lot by bicyclists, but the travel lane width was wider, so it can easily accommodate that. So it was like this comprehensive approach to the street. So done from the belly up.
And thinking of it in context, a complete streets design in Portland, Oregon is going to look a lot different than it will in Somersworth, New Hampshire. Because if you go out there when they have anything about more than that of snow, it's game over. Because they don't get snow, so they don't have plows, they don't have to deal with that. So the street's going to look a little different. So it's context sensitive as well.
Yeah, but when you talk about complete streets, and maybe it's a comment that I picked up on. You said maybe it's you can't always have complete streets. I mean, you're not going to have delivery vehicles and trucks and cars necessarily on streets because you don't want them there.
No, so it's not a one size fits all for sure. So maybe High Street and Main Street may look fairly similar someday when, as Main Street gets developed, but it's not going to look the same as 108 or, Route 9 or High Street past Blackwater.
I guess I would ask is, for each individual street, you could ask yourself, well, what's missing to make this better?
Yes.
All right, not necessarily it needs to be able to accommodate everything. You don't want every street to accommodate everything.
That's not the point. Yes.
A good example is Cemetery Road. We did complete streets out there. That's out near the high school. Students parked along the edge of the road. There was no curbing. There was no parking stalls. There was no sidewalk. So the complete street approach out there was to add a pedestrian sidewalk because kids walk to school, get out of their cars, and we actually added parking for the students instead of having them park on the lawn that we couldn't plow. So that was a different approach than what we did on Constitutional Way to accommodate the needs there.
Good example.
Okay.
Also, I want to suggest we have some kind of, to include a language. For example, you mentioned walkability, but to have it, to include the parks that we have. For example, the Wheeler Pond that we have, something to be integrated with the, the sidewalks and the other infrastructure that is on the high street. because a lot of people, for example, would utilize the park and then go into the business around it, to eat and have a good time with their family. So something to integrate the parks, to include like a language, to have more investments in parks. For example, when you go to Europe, parks are very big destinations. So, for example, if we include something like an infrastructure in the park, to have it like a regional park with all the infrastructure, will bring more people and more money into the business around the park. Just to have it, as you said, walkable and bikeable, Somersworth.
So a little more explicit language, and you're almost describing parks as more of a hub
As you
rather
said, like
than
a
their own.
destination, what are they going to do in Somersworth, If you have like a nice park, a nice infrastructure, they will make them come, you know what I mean? If you're not a local,
Yeah.
a visitor.
Great.
My suggestion.
It's an interesting observation and just a real world observation. We have quarter of a mile from here, the Noble Pines Park. I think it's a pretty premier park, I think. In the summertime, we have a splash pad up there. There are hundreds of people a day that utilize that splash pad. Some from Somersworth, but many from other communities that come here. Parking's a challenge up there. But I wonder how many people go there, they use the splash pad, and then they drive home afterwards versus a quarter-mile walk to the downtown to grab a pizza or go out to eat. So kind of resonates with me when you talk about the connectivity of our parks to other.
For example, my family, more friends will come to Portsmouth. We have a good time. We'll go around, but they will never come to Somersworth. Like, you know what I mean? There's nothing to really do to make them incentivized, what do you call it, to come. So, yeah.
Other comments on the themes as a whole?
One of the things that I keep thinking about is the physical size of Somersworth. When we talk about walkability, technically speaking, if you look at our busing regulations for kids in school, for high schoolers, it's 1.5 miles. For the younger elementary age kids, it's 1 mile. We're only 10 square miles, and our schools are pretty much in the center of the city. Technically speaking, I think just about every kid in Somersworth would be walking to school if we followed those guidelines. We don't. We make sure that we pick up kids, we bring them to school, and when especially at Maplewood, people start backing up an hour before school gets out because they're picking up their kids or they're dropping them off during the day. And I think size of our community really suggests that it should be a walkable place. And is in some places, but most places it isn't. And whether it's, Blackwater Road or whatever, where there's no sidewalks, for the most part, people ought to be able to get to school by walking on Blackwater Road. And it just doesn't, it's just not there. So, I don't know. I mean, we're a small community, and to me, the walkability really seems like it's doable if we put our mind to it.
I have a comment on drivability. Has that ever been considered, or is it even remotely viable to make the end of Main Street two-way to get more traffic into it?
I don't know if the director wants to tackle it, but there have been some looks at that over the years. There are barriers like there are with other things, not the least of which is probably the intersection up at Market Street and High Street and the need to perhaps reconfigure, or depending upon the amount of traffic, would throw another signal there, which has been the, I guess, one of the trepidations of this.
That's a good point.
Other comments on things as well?
I think the themes and the related goals all align. I think we're doing many of them, but to reinforce them makes sense. I agree that safety is important. We hear that a lot with regard to things like sidewalks. We hear that with regard to some intersections, and we've taken some stabs at making some improvements. You know, the intersection at Rite Aid, what used to be Rite Aid, and CVS, we spent short money there, like 50 grand to update the signals there, which has done a great job at reducing the amount of intersection crashes there by a lot. However, we have more fender benders now on High Street because it causes bigger traffic queues than we once used to have. So I guess I'd rather have the fender bender than the T-bone intersection collision, but it's not a perfect redo. The intersection needs to be redone in its entirety, but that's, you know, again, $7-8 million project, right? It's just hard to get there. So I think it's in the 10-year plan. Used to be.
Two things that I'd mention on specifically sidewalk, well, one for sidewalks, one for beautification. On the sidewalk point, I would paradoxically suggest that one way to improve some of the areas of sidewalk problems would be to reduce the number of sidewalks there. It sounds crazy on the face of it, but this comes out of something that we've talked about on the Conservation Commission. We've got a number of areas in the city where there are sidewalks on both sides of the street, and both sides of the street are in bad repair. And I'd argue that the only thing worse than a road without a sidewalk is a sidewalk on a road that's in poor condition. That creates a situation where people don't want to use it. I have a friend who was pretty badly hurt when he hit a chunk of sidewalk that was in bad repair and flipped his skateboard on it. If nobody's willing to use either sidewalk, it might make sense to tear one out, maintain the one that's there, and plant trees where that second one used to be. It's come up as part of the tree inventory work that we've been doing on conservation. Sidewalks are expensive. Keeping them in good condition is also expensive. Doesn't make sense to have two that are broken as opposed to one that works.
Again, I'd argue, similar to the complete streets where we have we've adopted this sort of thought process, but I hear where you're going with that, because we've also adopted this thought process that, like on residential side streets, ultimately they'll be removed and not put back because we're not going to plow them. There'll be too many miles of sidewalks. The traffic volume is so light on some of these residential streets that arguably you don't need the sidewalk. And it's just cheaper to remove them than to put new. And let's put our money on the main drags where sidewalk improvements are better realized. You're right. It's crazy money. A length of sidewalk is 10 times the cost of the same length of road. They're ginormously expensive. And so we've adopted this sort of idea. But I think I'll call it a sidewalk policy in terms of a sidewalk repair policy might be in order so that we could sort of memorialize our thought process there.
On the topic of beautification and improving the look of particularly downtown, I know we tend to look in the immediate area, but one city that I would point out as an excellent example of how this can be done well is the city that I grew up in. That's Nashua. My parents moved with me, of course, with them to Nashua when I was 7, and I've maintained connections there because my parents still live there. Looking at downtown Nashua from when I left that city at 18 to where it is now, 30 years later, is a night and day difference. That downtown was, in large parts of it's abandoned, had a lot of buildings in very poor repair, and if I look at what's happened there now, they've opened up areas for new artists, student artists, to put murals on the sides of buildings that are gorgeous. There's one that I saw being painted there when I was visiting my parents a couple of years ago that took what was just a flat face of concrete and turn it into a 125-foot-long mural of jazz musicians that is gorgeous. And they did it for not a lot of city investment. It was opening up those areas to young people who were talented artists, who are skilled artists, and just giving them a canvas and a little bit of monetary support. If we could establish connections with Nashua, look at what they've done, and adopt that kind of model, we have canvases all over this city. We have planting areas all over this city that just need an artist, and they're out there.
And to that point specifically, Rochester Arts is also worth contacting, and maybe Nashua's used some of the same techniques where it's not literal paint. It's a special polymer that the art comes on, and it is impermanently adhered to the side of the building. It can be removed, and it looks pretty sharp.
Yep, that's cool. Great.
So with your permission, Mr. Chairman, you all have kind of started talking about some of the goals, so I can kind of start going through those.
Please, let's dive in.
The complete streets policy we've talked about. Some of the goals are a little more specific. 1B about major destinations being fully accessible by wheelchair. That gets into a whole, if you talk about feasibility and impact, it'd have a huge impact, but has a huge cost as well for if you're talking about ADA accessible storefronts and those sorts of things. So wanted to get your thoughts. I mean, sidewalks are a great example of, it would be amazing if all of the sidewalks were up to ADA code, but that's not going to happen overnight.
I don't like, to that end, I don't like the word ensure.
Okay.
It's finite,
Yep.
definitive, maybe strive for, or something to that effect.
Mm-hmm.
Encourage.
Yeah, where it is possible and makes sense.
More aspirational synonym there.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're not called the Hilltop City for a lack of a reason. There are sidewalks and streets in this city that an attempt to make them wheelchair accessible would be insanity.
More switchbacks in the Grand Canyon.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah, we have some sidewalks in the city that require steps. And where it makes sense, let's make things more walkable or accessible to wheelchairs, but be smart about it.
Some places you just need a lift.
Exactly. Yeah. And calling back to your comments about European cities, we have areas here that if you're going to make them accessible, would require funiculars. And while I'd love to see that, I don't think we have that kind of money.
1C and 1D we kind of talked about. If there are other comments on those, please come back. 1E, I hope my wording was correct there. I was kind of getting at if you talk about looking for barriers and opportunities, are there ways to align the way development comes online, hopefully without lengthening the time that applications take, but finding ways to align opportunities to improve pedestrian facilities if sidewalks exist, or if you're talking about an extension to a sidewalk if a new development is coming along Main Street, to incentivize those sorts of things happening at the same time. So it's not development happening and then the city is on the hook to improve the transportation infrastructure separately.
Yeah.
If that made sense.
It absolutely does. And I think we've done a pretty solid job of that on the board, of working with developers to get sidewalks put in, to not have them where it doesn't make sense to have them, to take developments in areas where sidewalks don't make sense and have them contribute to other areas of the city where it does. I think it's a continuation of what we've been doing.
And our site plan regulations currently require developers to connect with Coast Bus to see if bus-related facilities might be amenable in the area. A good example of that is the project of the Press Cafe development up on High Street. They'll actually be constructing a kind of a slight jog in the roadway to have a bus exit the travel lane, and they're actually installing a bus stop there. So that's a net gain, right? So.
And as you kind of pointed out, some of these goals may just sort of memorialize what you all have been doing since the master plan was updated. And if some just can be scratched because we did this, check, but if other ones are just good to keep in there to sort of make it more official.
Yeah, I wouldn't advocate scratching them, it would be emphasis.
Great.
When you talk about multimodal, and I'm anticipating the next theme a little bit here, that comes down to bus around here. We have a rail line, it's primarily freight, doesn't have a passenger stop in the city, and I'm not sure that Amtrak would exactly want one. Light rail doesn't really exist in this part of the area as much as I wish it did, but the buses do. And Coast, despite all of the financial challenges they faced, has, I think, been a very good partner to the city, and the Press Cafe development is a great example of where that can be improved even further.
Great. Goals in the second batch of them?
Gonna jump into that?
All right. So you kind of spoke to 2A, improving multimodal connections. People mentioned support for the bus and using it, but just noting, I wish, 108 at Goodwin Community Health is kind of the poster child we hold up for bus stop on either side, but no crossing.
Yeah.
And so half of your trip is a nightmare, depending on which way you're coming, because you have to cross 108 on foot with no pedestrian crossing at some point. So those are the kinds of things that came up in our outreach. Again, connecting to Berwick, and I think I wrote this before. You talk about Coast's financial troubles. I believe the bus still goes over to Berwick, but they have been looking at cuts here and there necessary as they hit financial woes. So the 2C, enhance regional public transportation options and promote current services, speaks more to the range of options, not just Coast fixed route, but with Coast comes door-to-door service for folks who cannot reach a bus stop, that live within a quarter mile of that bus stop. That's specific to Coast, but there are other Ready Rides, well, I don't know if they serve Somersworth, but volunteer driver program that is specifically for non-emergency medical transportation. So there are a range of services for specific trip purposes out there. So that was just saying what is available for Somersworth that is not currently in town. And many of those services are free or negligible cost to the city to get them going. And it's just sort of highlighting them on the town website or just improving those connections and making them formal.
Yeah, it hasn't been brought up, I don't think, at Planning Board before, but WDH in Dover runs a program I think it's called Caravan.
Yep.
And building awareness of that being an option out there. I don't even know how it operates. Or I don't either. Yeah.
Stratford Community Action Partnership serves Somersworth, and they provide medical and shopping trips, I believe, primarily. And I can sort of compile all of those and get you all as we move into the more specific strategy development pieces. There'll be more detail there.
Yeah. One consistent theme that I see around that sort of thing is that the services are out there, but people don't know they're out there or how to access them. My wife works at Community Partners in Rochester, and the work that they do, I imagine that would be kind of done through Goodwin in Somersworth just because of the location there. But I think it's getting people awareness of what's out there and what they can access should they need it.
Well, and without getting into it, the Alliance for Community Transportation serves to connect people to all those services, and there are the four main ones that are part of ACT, and an individual can sign up one time with one form and get signed up for all the services they're eligible for in perpetuity.
I don't
so
think
it's
people
just
are aware
advertising
of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any questions coming up? All right. And so 2D just kind of speaks to that a little more broadly in a little more aspirational, goal-ish language. It's just sort of looking to barriers that individuals might face, especially if they can't drive. Can they access the critical, medical, education, grocery shopping, their friend's house, the city hall, those sorts of things.
And I agree with you, Jeremy. I think part of that is maybe we have some of this already, but just promoting how you access it is important.
And we have a number of tools we can bring to bear as we get into the weeds on some of those more implementation side of things. Like a complete survey of all the sidewalks in the region with their level of comfort and condition and so forth. Any other questions before theme 3?
Just something that came to mind, and I do a lot of business with Mass General, Brigham, Wentworth Douglas, and I'm a regular over there at different times a year. But Mass General has a very good communication systems with people who generally use hospital services and medical providers to them in the area in the form of surveys and questionnaires. And they truly do ask for people's input. And when you have a good idea, they get back to you saying, gee, that's something we haven't heard of before. You know, we're going to pursue this. And one of the things that they do very well on is making sure that people have asking people if they have transportation services to get to their facilities. And I mean, I've noticed, you know, Wentworth Douglas has a transportation service of its own. If you can't get there, you let them know.
The caravan.
And they have a van that will come and pick you up and take you home. I didn't know that until I participated in the survey here, where I take my car as a transportation service. And you know, I'm just wondering how many things are out there that people don't know about.
They tend to learn about them when it becomes an emergency. And I think, so the caravan, unfortunately, is for scheduled services. So you can't necessarily call up the caravan, you know, I need to get to the doctor today.
Right.
It's as, you know, as you're leaving or whatever, like, do you have transportation home? Well, we got you covered there. Volunteer driver programs in the area, dialysis appointments are the majority of their trips that they serve, and that's people going 2 and 3 times a week to Fresenius. Those are scheduled and non-emergency. But yeah, so there is a gap, interesting, between like healthcare providers and transportation providers, and what brings them together is the cost of a hospital, of a person who can't get to their appointment because they lack transportation. That is a measurable and significant cost for a hospital if a person doesn't make their appointment, because then then their whole thing gets screwed up with their scheduling of the nurses and doctors. So there's a lot to talk on there.
Yeah. Thanks.
Sure.
Yeah. Dialysis isn't an emergency until you miss an appointment. Then it's an emergency real quick.
Yes. Theme 3, you all hinted at the kind of young families, and we heard similar sentiments. We spoke to your superintendent of schools, speaking to the need for attracting, if you're going to have young families, you have to have schools in the downtown, were 2 of the ones that he really pointed out. So we heard a lot on surveys and outreach of desire for more family and kid-oriented businesses, places for kids to go, not just parks, but I suppose people didn't mention a children's museum specifically, but something like that. 3B, that's in brackets. I can speak to some of the findings that came up on the parking study toward the end, if you like. But you already have spoken to many of the things that we found there. You already really touched on 3C about the design of the street contributing to the economic development and attracting businesses, and I agree that I started at SRPC right as your High Street project was fresh pavement, kind of when I started, and that was transportation enhancements was a grant, I think, that came in on that.
Or some grant money.
Yeah. And as you said, that went along with the 79E adoption, I believe, and those 2 things accelerated things really quick. And you already spoken to 3D about green space in the street design. thinking of things like the plaza more, can you incorporate some additional uses into instead of just a big parking lot? Personally, I feel the least safe on most of my trips in the middle of a parking lot after I get out of my car. It's kind of a no man's land. So can the streets and the sidewalks and paths bring people from the plaza parking lot to the downtown to incentivize parking outside the downtown and walking to it rather than doing loop-de-loops in the downtown until a parking space opens up? So getting to those sorts of questions. And then you talk about a thought for complete streets is, are there opportunities on your main street or high street for incorporating more room for dining outside? So looking for space to leave some room, widen the sidewalk, make almost like a little mini plaza type of thing, where folks can sit outside, have pizza, coffee, you name it, whatever it is, sandwich.
So it's funny you bring that up. It's no longer there, but Stripe 9 Brewery was a corner anchor tenant here in the plaza. And a fair amount of inside seating. I wouldn't say it was a big restaurant, but it had a fair amount of inside seating. COVID hit, right? And that changed everything. And they moved a lot of their tables outside, put up a bunch of kegs with ropes around them to kind of identify the area. It was a wonderful place to eat.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you should have been doing this all along, right? And they're not there anymore. But I think it speaks to what you just spoke of, and I think looking for those opportunities is.
But I had a random thought when you were talking about the BP station. For some reason, I just envisioned like 2 or 3 food trucks there. You don't have to build something; it's a parking lot. But now it's also walk up, grab a churro or burrito or whatever it is, burger.
Yeah. Keep the building, and you roll up the doors, and there's a farmer's market inside, right? Who knows, right?
So you can play with some ideas. Any other questions on goals under draft 3? Or any of them? Doesn't have to be just that. Things that sparked. All right. Theme 4 specifically on safety. 4A is, it kind of speaks to, in the safety world, infrastructure is sometimes the only thing that's going to slow a vehicle down if your goal is to reduce speeds. A speed limit sign on the side of the road is great, but if it's the speed limit technically according to all the calculations and formulas should be X, but the road is really wide and straight, even a conscientious person is just going to naturally speed up because it's, unless a deer runs out. That ties into 4B, which I've talked to Michelle about, in which a number of neighboring communities are working on not just so look at the use of the street, whether it's a neighborhood, your downtown, or 236, like a kind of gateway corridor, and think about the way that street could be designed. And I think going from 2 bad sidewalks to a good one and reusing that where the sidewalk was is a good example of reimagining what the cross-section of a street would look like. Does the design encourage kids to play on their neighborhood street, play basketball? I rollerbladed and played basketball on my street growing up, and I wouldn't do that today. I don't know why it changed, but it seemed to. So can you use infrastructure, and ideally, low cost, high impact? A brand new sidewalk is high cost, high impact. So is there a lower cost one that's more feasible? So as I said, Newmarket is working on one that I've shared with Michelle as far as a sort of a range of visual cross sections of types of streets under certain contexts. That might be, you can kind of do these things incrementally as it comes time to repave, or this sidewalk is completely bombed out, or hey, we're doing a water main project, what can we do with the streetscape at the same time for another 5% on top?
And this is another point where looking at it in the context of the area and the societal background that it's in, bears a lot of good fruit at the end. Without going into comments about how absolutely feral prior generations were, being part of Gen X, we were. You need to look at how kids are now, how neighborhoods are now, where traffic calming improvements make sense. If I look at areas like Baghdad Road in Durham, they just took out speed tables there in the past year because it didn't make a lot of sense on that road. But if you're looking at some areas of back roads, back streets in Somersworth, it might make an awful lot of sense to do that kind of a thing. So,
Couple of comments on this note here. A good example of, I think, improvements for minimal dollars. We had a pedestrian fatality on Old Rochester Road, Route 16B. The city is installing some additional street lighting out in that area where it makes sense. But we come to find out that's a state-maintained roadway, so there's very little we could do. Adding streetlights was something we could do, and that was about it. But we learned that New Hampshire DOT will be paving that road this coming spring and summer. And they've agreed to, when they restripe the road after the paving effort, to narrow the lane widths as a traffic calming measure. It's not as good as curbing, right? But it's something. It's going to create more pedestrian refuge off to the side. So again, it's an incremental improvement for short money that we can do there. I think the other thing that I could speak of in the downtown corridor, we've installed several of the rectangular rapid flash beacons, and there's a desire to continue that progress at key crossings through the downtown corridor. They seem to work, quite frankly.
Those are a great example of a low cost, a relatively low cost, for many reasons. They're highly effective and supported by feds in the state. And just to the pedestrian fatality, I work with the safety section folks at DOT, and they have brought that up regularly as this shouldn't have happened, and they're highly focused on that.
that's good to hear, because I can't think of an area where letting the perfect be the enemy of the good is a worse thing to do than traffic safety areas. Simple things like streetlights, like flashing crossing signs, restriping of crosswalks. They don't solve every problem, but they go a long way.
Then as I said, safety is a big focus for me. The state will be bringing a new database online fairly soon. I have understanding. We have a number of data tools. We can look at all the streets and, for instance, look at where the actual speeds are significantly higher than the posted speeds on some of the, I'm forgetting the name of the road that I wanted to bring up, that's sort of to the north of town that goes up north and west, where it's a...
It's West High?
I'm forgetting, but it's not a 236, and it's not High Street. It's somewhere in between, where it's straight and it encourages speeding where it shouldn't. It's
Blackwater Road.
primarily, so Blackwater is a good example. So, yeah. And I can also, I'll provide, for the next phase of things, a kind of summary list of all the projects that are on the state's 10-year plan in its draft form. And the ones we have kind of we have a long-range list of projects as well that we discussed with staff and members.
I don't know if it's all useful. You probably already know. Maybe Michelle has shared with you. The city has on file a sidewalk condition index. We hired an engineering firm, and they did that. So we have a rating on all of our sidewalks.
Yep.
We have the same for all of our streets. So I think it's just a useful tool as we prioritize projects.
I have a question. The High Street, it's all owned by the city or managed by the city?
Yes.
Just suggestion. When you drive along the High Street, it's very, how do you say, like not bareback, but the cables, the poles and everything, the lighting having some sort of visual, how do you say, like to hide all those like trees to plant along the along the road will make it more visually appealing, or because the road is very wide, and then the poles and all that. Having some sort of trees along that will make it more even walkable for the people, like not as scary, you know. Just put it as a part of the safety, you know what I mean? Something along those lines.
Yeah,
Just got to be careful of the type of trees. Most of the time, the utility company wants us
yeah,
to
yeah,
cut
I
them
know.
all down.
but vegetation between people walking on the side of the road and the vehicles is
Because
significant.
that corridor is a lot of people when you drive, you know what I mean? A lot of people walk along that road, but it's kind of scary because cars drive so fast that walking along that, it feels scary, you know what I mean?
So we,
Not encouraging.
in our sidewalk assessment, we looked at those sorts of things. So yes, there's a sidewalk, but is there nothing but a curb between you and a car, and you have high volume, high speed? That's not going to attract a family with young kids walking down necessarily.
My house is near to the Home Depot and all that. I don't want to walk because it's kind of scary to walk there, so I would prefer to drive. So for me, it's more encouraging to drive rather than just walk to the business.
Last thing I can touch on is the just general overview of the parking study results. We found that we looked at all public spaces within the downtown core. 38% total utilization over the course of the study. That was the maximum that we found looking at the average. Lots of long-term parking out by the plaza and on Main Street, but that was only 5% occupied, or only 5% of spaces were occupied over the full day. A lot of city staff, I believe, parked down in the plaza lot, and those are marked as such. Approximately 46% of parking spaces with a posted time limit were used for longer than the regulation allowed. And we heard directly from storefront owners that people don't have time to come in and grab a full sit-down meal and not get ticketed. So people keep getting ticketed for staying for an hour and a half for a meal when the limit is only an hour. That's just, I don't know if that's the actual number. And then you've got maybe some potential conflicts with people that live in the apartments downtown, parking on the street. So how to balance that. You've already spoken to some of that. So we're looking at the details, and we'll be providing that in the future.
As little as people like it, metering on parking may be a way to go there. If I look at Dover, Portsmouth, and the turnover in parking that's in those areas, I think a lot of what drives that is people knowing I have to be gone by this time, and I've paid for this spot for this length of time. Nobody likes them, but they do turn over spaces.
I'd argue that maybe our first step would be enforcing, because we only have a part-time parking enforcement officer, so there is no one policing the time-limited parking at the busy times of day, right? So that's a problem. Any discussion in your parking study about our snow emergency declarations? There was a day here in Somersworth where you couldn't park on a city street from November 1st till April 1st, any night. We got away from that a number of years ago, so now the Public Works Director can declare a snow emergency.
We didn't get into that in the recommendations, but that's a good.
Yeah, because it creates some angst.
Yeah.
I think it works. I don't know what the alternative is, but it's like a superintendent of schools calling or delaying school, right? You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. I think that's our Public Works Director at times, right? Because sometimes the storm, more snow than you thought. Geez, we should have put a snow emergency in place. And then sometimes we put a snow emergency in place and the thing goes out to sea, and people have scrambled to park their car elsewhere and it doesn't snow. But it creates some angst in the downtown in particular.
All right. This was great feedback. Any other questions, feel free to either contact me directly or through Michelle. Mike and I are both on our website and readily contactable. phone call, email, whatever.
Thank you for sticking with us, especially for so long. Much appreciated.
Okay, of course.
All right. I think our final item on the agenda is communications and miscellaneous. Anything under those items? Ms. Mears.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have two items to communicate about. Target is going through an extensive remodel, and they've pulled some building permits. As part of this remodel, they're going to need to take up 4 columns of parking on the left-hand side of the site. That will be a staging area with fencing, temporary fencing for construction, and there'll be a number of shipping containers with building materials in it, but I just wanted the board to be aware that that's going to be happening. I think it's a 6-month construction period, and just wanted to make sure that the board is okay with the parking being reduced for that. Okay, seeing nods. And then just to let everybody know, 22 Green Street, which was formerly 85 Elm, has received a temp certificate of occupancy. I think they have 10 units rented so far. People moved in last Sunday, and 65% of those people that moved in are Somersworth residents that are looking to be in that multifamily new construction. So I just wanted to report that out. I think there'll be some kind of grand opening that the planning board will be invited to in the future.
Good to hear.
Is that a rental or rent, or you own the apartment?
They're rental units. Rental units, yep.
I received a call from a resident on Greenfield Drive. It's off of Route 108. It abuts the Marshbrook Rehab Seacoast Orthopedic building, sort of across from the Wentworth Douglas Surgical Center. There's a large parking lot there. Apparently, they've had some trouble with their parking lot lights, and they've now strung wires overhead from light pole to light pole, and they've installed directional floodlights, which are causing concerns for the neighbors. So I would just flag that for code to take a look at it.
Any other items? In that case, looking for a motion.
So move to adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Whittam, second by Mr. Gomet. All those in favor? Opposed? All right. We are then adjourned at 20:51. Thank you all.